Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Hey, it's me, Joy.
Hey, Joy, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Very good. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me and everyone listening today. You're a VIP guest, special guest on the show. And the reason for
Thank
that
you.
is not only are you a fitness professional, an incredible human being, but also a coach for the Nock Academy as well. So we're going to dive into lots of fitness stuff, but we're going to hear a little bit about your journey, your coaching philosophy. Many of you listening who are members have had the pleasure of being coached by Joy, and I have had the pleasure of teaching alongside her and, kind of living the fitness industry, side by side in some capacities and from a distance. So, yeah, we're going to find out a whole load more. And I guess we'll start a little bit with your kind of background, where did fitness start for you, and what kind of things have you delved into? I obviously know a lot of this already, but you're going to share it with the listeners and just tell us a little bit about that kind of journey and, summarize, I guess, where it kind of got you to this point in the industry.
Sure. Yeah, as you know, we talked about them recently. Like fitness, I feel runs in my blood with my mom and her twin sisters, Susie and Dorothy. I decided I'm just going to shout out everyone by name as we go through this podcast because people love hearing their names.
Yeah.
so, so yeah, my mom and my aunt Susie and Dorothy, they have been doing fitness instructing since I'm going to say at least 30 years. 30, yeah, it's got to be 30 plus years. And yeah, they've still kept up with it. So I was around it from a young age. My mom used to take me to when she would teach a class. I would come along with her. So yeah, I've been around it from a young age. It wasn't always something that I was super into. I played sports, like recreational sports, as a kid, as a teenager, but wasn't so much into like the gym. When I started getting into fitness more was probably in my 20s. I just decided that like I didn't love how I looked. I wasn't super confident with how I looked. I wanted to like lose a few pounds, just look a little bit better, be a little bit fitter. And then, yeah, I started going to the gym. I think I took my Aunt Dorothy's body pump class, was kind of my first adventure into it. I remember I was shaking for hours afterwards. I think I used very little weight, but like shaking for hours afterwards. Don't ask me why I decided that I wanted to come back after that, but I did. And so, yeah, I started getting into fitness more as a consumer. And I was working in the entertainment industry, doing marketing and publicity. And I was sort of enjoying that, sort of not. And as that was happening, I started going to the gym more, enjoying the group fitness classes. And my mom had said to me, like, oh, it seems like you like this. I did the personal training. She had done the personal training course many years ago. And she said, I think I'd like to do it again to refresh it. Do you want to come with me? So I did. And we went and did the personal training course, the Canfit Pro personal training course together. I liked that, but I was still more into like the group fitness stuff. The one-on-one was cool, but I really liked working out with a group. And then luckily at one point I was doing a body pump class and an instructor, Amy, said I was going to mention everyone by name. Amy approached me and she said, oh yeah, you seem pretty good at this. You seem to like it. Like, would you want to be an instructor? I said, yeah, that would be great. So I went through body pump training, and that was kind of the beginning of my whole group fitness instruction career. And then I also got into the fitness industry on sort of what we'll call the back end, because, like I said, I was working in the entertainment industry. I liked like publicity and marketing and that kind of stuff. I just didn't really like the environment that I was working in. I had gone to I had been teaching fitness classes for a while. I'd gone and volunteered with my mom and my aunt at a couple of Canfit Pro conferences. And I had really liked how the fitness industry seemed to be really motivational, really into building people up, making people feel good. Whereas with my job in the entertainment industry, kind of felt like the opposite, like they were like tearing everyone down. So I felt like, okay, maybe I can do like what I went to school for and what I do in the fitness industry. So ended up, luckily, not right away, but luckily ended up getting a job with Canfit Pro as an event education coordinator. I got to work on putting together the fitness conferences, the fitness conferences across the country, and loved that. So that was really cool because I could do fitness full time. Like I could do my teaching and the practical element of it, and then I could also do like the back end. And I love learning and education, so it was just kind of like a dream combination for me. So that's where I really started getting heavily into the fitness industry, and from then it's just been more of that. I did some consulting with some fitness companies. I worked with Filex, who does fitness conferences in Australia, which was really cool. I most recently was working with a couple of the Jewish community centers on their group fitness programs in Toronto. So that was a great experience as well. And just continuing to teach group fitness classes. We train a couple of clients, personal training. And my personal fitness, I started probably 3 years ago, like just pre-pandemic. I started getting into CrossFit as my own fitness pursuit, because I'm always in pursuit of like different things. I want to learn how to do everything. I want to challenge myself and gain new skills. So started getting into CrossFit about 3 years ago, and that's kind of been my passion for the last few years, on and off when I could, being it was pandemic and things were closed. But that's where my kind of passions lie more recently, and I think that brings us to now.
Yeah. Well, I've had the pleasure of hearing bits of that story on and off in many conversations before, but it does kind of paint the picture. And what it reminds me of when I look at the industry, and I talk about this quite a lot, and, you know, I've had various conversations on podcasts and other things, how many of us that have been in the industry a long time, and let's be clear, the average turnover is probably less than 2 years. If you give or take, kind of group fitness instructors, sometimes a little bit longer as it's part-time, but definitely with like full-time associates, with gyms and people who run businesses, typically it's less than 2 years. So anyone that's past like the 5 up to like 10, or is a dinosaur like me at 22 years nearly, we have a lot of different elements of what we do, and there's always this journey right through many things. And for me, it does two things. It keeps people engaged, and it builds this outlook and this view on the world, and it helps you see it different, right? Because different people come to group fitness, different people want personal training, some people do both. And there's always been this, we had this really great show back I don't even know now, early on, it's like episode 12 I think, and we had Giles Bryant on, so we're naming everyone's names, so we'll name some more. He came on and chatted.
Shout out.
Yeah, you'll know who Giles is, and for anyone listening, he's an international fitness presenter, works for a big group fitness based company that we both know, Les Mills. And we talked a lot about that, the barriers between group fitness and one-on-one based coaching and training. And, and I talk about it recently when I had Jill on a couple of weeks ago, who's a mentor of mine. And we talked about the same thing, about how we build this fitness professional when we can really widen our view on who's coming in, how we're serving these people, why there's different entry points for different people. And I just think sometimes maybe we don't see that enough when we are in just one element of the industry. So I don't know how that's kind of impacted you, and whether you still see that in the industry now.
Yes, for sure. And I think that I like how you said it as a positive thing, that we have these different views and different perspectives, because I think sometimes it can have, people have a negative connotation about it, as in like, oh, this person works in the fitness industry. That means they jump around from job to job and they don't stick with one thing for more than a couple of years. And some people, it sounds negative. Like it's like we can't commit to anything. But I think that you're right, that there is a positive aspect to it as well, because it helps us get to know our clients and our audience and the people we work with, and we can relate to them better. And I've definitely learned very different things from every different facet of the fitness industry that I've worked in.
Yeah, it's so true. And, we believe that it makes our business model unique in some respect. And I'm sure there's other people doing similar things to what we're doing. However, we're able to have this entry level point. So here's a schedule of group-based training, which is multi-level, multi-dimensional, and people can kind of look at all the different parts of it and kind of join at that point where they're comfortable, get some coaching. And then if they need it, which many of them do, they'll then inquire, say, hey, I'd like to work a little bit more one-on-one. This works in a group environment. Gyms have been doing it for years. Unfortunately, I don't think they've quite figured out how to build cohesion between the people that do the roles. Sometimes not.
Yeah.
But we've been able to do it as a business in the same, we bring people in and then we've got these pool of people and they're going to be looking for potentially one-on-one based coaching. That might be mobility work, personal training. It might be nutrition, lifestyle, whatever it might be. And if we have that skill set that's broad, right? Because there's the entry level thing. This is what always got me as a trainer, and also why, quite frankly, I was so successful, because I could teach classes and have like 25, 35, 50 people in a class that are all at entry point. Someone in there needs a little bit more. And who are they coming to? They're coming to me. So being able to use those skill sets, right? So I think as a business model, it just works so well. And, and it is a positive to have those multiple things. Plus, how many people are bored of their job? Like, I'm never bored of my job, ever.
So, yeah.
Right.
So I was doing the other day I was doing programming for a couple clients, and I was like, okay, these 2 hours today is gonna be programming or whatever. And I was doing it, and then I also had some correspondence, like confirming when people were coming and how are they feeling about this goal and whatever. And then I got to kind of the end of the day, and I was like, oh, I was doing work all day. Like I didn't realize that I was like doing work. I was like, these are just things that I do.
Isn't that a beautiful place to be, when you just kind of like flow? And I'm so grateful that sometimes I struggle, and don't get me wrong, it's not all, rainbows and ice cream, but it is, it's nice to sometimes struggle with the empathy side of people saying, I hate getting up in the morning. I hate my job. I hate my life. Like you can find way, and I have things to draw from in my past, like, I'm sure you do and many coaches do, but in current day, sometimes it's difficult for me because I have to really sit and think, how does that feel for somebody? Because I don't know. I just wake up and the first thing I want to do is go and start doing stuff that's work, quote unquote. And I'm doing bunny ear quotes if you're listening and not watching, because it doesn't feel like that to me. It just, some days it does, don't get me wrong, but it's a nice place to be. And I think it just, like, to your point earlier, the positivity of the fitness industry, I believe a lot of it comes from that we can truly do what we enjoy every day, right?
Yeah. And I feel like there's always a moment, at least one moment in the day that you can see that's positive. Like you're working with a client and they say like, oh, I've noticed I'm better at this or something. And even if it's just like a small moment, or they're like, you notice that something has improved. Their squat looks better. And that's just like something that you can grab and hold on to. And you're like, oh, wow, like something I did made a difference. And there's no way to not feel good about that.
Yeah. Making a positive impact on others, right? It's huge. And, a lot of people don't find that within their job, or, and there's many other aspects we can have a positive impact on people. Parenting is a good example. Coaching is a good example of doing a job that makes a difference. But a lot of people don't find that, right? And having that kind of purposeful side to life is so important. And definitely that feedback is for the days, like I mentioned, for those days where I don't want to do it and I feel like crap and I don't want to work or I don't want to coach. Those moments are the things where I'm like, can you imagine that person gets that workout today and that's the end result of it? They feel better, they feel empowered, whatever it is huge. So I definitely agree with you on that. So sticking with that kind of thought that we were working through on the kind of mix of the people in the industry. So we'll just call it, for the sake of argument, personal trainers and group fitness instructors. It's a bit broader than that, but that keeps it simple. Is where do you think it comes from? So I have my thoughts. There's this divide, and there's always been a divide. And when you're in the middle of the two, like I am, you feel like a bit of an outcast when you work in a gym environment, because people are like, well, what are you? What side are you on? And I'm like, I'm on no one's side. I'm here just doing the best job I can do. Where, in your opinion, do you think that divide comes from?
Oh, that's a tricky question, and something that I have thought about, and it's something that I especially thought about in my most recent role when I was doing the group fitness management for a couple of facilities. And it was like I would see completely different group of members getting personal training than I would see in my classes. It didn't happen it happened more at one facility than another, but yeah, I always thought that was strange. Why those two things weren't being combined, because we know, as like people who have managed these programs, that they can be cohesive and they can work really well together. And I'm not sure if it's I don't want to say like a lack of education on either side, but I think part of it is just, like us as group fitness instructors and us as personal trainers, just knowing more about the other side of things. I think us, as when we're managers, we've seen both sides of things and we understand how they can work together and be cohesive. And I think maybe it's on a more micro level that those trainers and those instructors just can get more education, can understand how those things can blend and can be used in a complementary fashion.
And listen, there's no right or
wrong. What are your thoughts? Now I'm curious.
Yeah, no right and wrong answers, because it's solely opinion. I'm much on the same page as you. So two things that I've come to the realization over the years, and number one is it's about communication, and intertwined with that is what I believe is intimidation. And I mean that I'll explain a little bit. So communication, it speaks for itself, right? If people are communicating, we have a good relationship. I try to always do a good job of this because I was on both sides and trying to get those conversations happening, right? And see how they can support one another, like you said. Personal trainers that are very, very good at what they do, and let's say that for the most part, with good reason, they're typically focused a little bit more on conditioning and strength-based stuff. So I find in my experience that a lot of them are scared of cardio and think that group fitness is all cardio, which a lot of the time it is. And then the opposite true. So the group fitness instructor is very good at that environment. However, in typical, and any group fitness instructor might take offense to this, they're listening, but typically the group fitness instructor is less certified, less qualified, less knowledgeable about fitness. Not always, but for the most part. And I'll paint a picture for you. A personal trainer might be doing months on end of training. A group fitness instructor might have done a weekend course to learn to teach a specific discipline, right? So it's a little bit different. There's a shift specific there, right? So what happens is then they're intimidated because they're intimidated by how much the trainer knows. So they don't want them around in their class, or they don't want to have a conversation with them because they feel intimidated from that knowledge standpoint, and vice versa. They're intimidated maybe by the amount of people, the environment. Group fitness instructor personality for a lot of the time can be very, very extroverted and be quite kind of upfront. And for a lot of trainers, and I've worked with a lot of them, that's intimidating. So this is where I think that comes from. Like there's this like constant, well, we don't really want to go in your world and I don't want to go in your world. And for that reason, there's this divide. That's kind of, I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's kind of what I've made up make sense to me in my head over the years.
That makes sense. And that also makes me think it's like you said, people like their comfort zone. They're comfortable where they are. It's called a comfort zone for a reason. And yeah, if you're a personal trainer and you think that group fitness is something that you haven't done before, and you think maybe it's all like counts and you need to be on the beat, and you're not comfortable with that, and you don't want to go into a group environment where there's other people there seeing your level of discomfort, I can see how, like you said, it's intimidating, and you maybe just don't want to explore. You're like, I'm happy in my lane. I know that this works. I know what I'm doing here, and it can be scary to step out and go to the other side. Same thing, and not to knock personal trainers, it would be the same thing going the other way. Group fitness instructors, maybe they know they've been trained in a specific way of doing things. I can speak from my personal experience. When I like, body pumps was my first discipline. I knew how to do body pump. I knew everything about body pump. And I thought, like, I know how to lift weights, but all I really knew was body pump. And then when I went into CrossFit, luckily I'm one of those people that likes getting out of my comfort zone. But yeah, when I went into CrossFit and started learning Olympic lifts, I was like, I thought I knew how to lift weights. I have no idea what I'm doing. So yeah, it can definitely be intimidating, and I can see why people wouldn't want to cross over from one path to the other.
Yeah. And that's such a great point, that when we can be open to doing things differently. I was about to say when we be open to when we do things wrong and then change it, but that's not necessarily the case. That was probably the wrong thing. And I say that because we're doing it differently. And in my opinion, what I've learned over the years is there's not really bad types of exercise, in my opinion, because everything has its place, right? It's about application. And if you apply it in a certain way, right? So for example, we were talking about body pump. So for anyone listening and doesn't know what body pump is, it's a weight-based class to music. You use a barbell, you use weights, etc. in the studio. So in that, for safety reasons and for the speed that you move at, you squat partial range. And then when you go in the gym, you're probably going to squat full depth because you're going to do it nice and slow for 2 or 3 reps. As long as the application is right for the person, and there's balance too, right? Like someone says to me, I do body pump 4 times a week and nothing else. I'm like, you're probably going to end up imbalanced, right? You need to switch it up. You need to change things for the same reason that maybe, if you only lift weights, probably do some cardio. And if all you're doing is cardiovascular based stuff, maybe lift some weights, right? Like you got to find a balance, and it's understanding that. But I love what you said about getting out of your comfort zone. Now, I got to go off topic now because now it's in my head and I can't think about anything else. So I have to talk about this, even though that conversation is kind of still, it's smoldering there. I'm thinking about it a bit more and see what else we can come up with.
Love
it. The comfort zone thing, you enjoy being out of your comfort zone. This is a big, like, macro question. How did you get comfortable being out of your comfort zone, or enjoy it? Maybe not being comfortable out of your comfort zone. How did you learn to enjoy it and embrace it? Like, that's something that plagues me, and I need to know. Just for everyone listening, I don't really care. This is for me.
This is what it's really about. It's really about you. Oh geez, how did I get to that point? I think I don't know if it was like a trigger, like, incident, or if it kind of was like a slow burn over time. But this is going to get a little bit off topic too, but it probably all goes back to when I was 18. My mom had leukemia. She spent 8 months in the hospital, chemotherapy, bone marrow transplant, all of that stuff. And one of the things that I think our whole family really learned during that time was like our time is short, number one, and kind of like, don't sweat the small stuff was a big thing that came out of it. And I think that's kind of what put me on a path of not being afraid to do things, like not to do things where I might look stupid or I might not know what I'm doing, or it was just kind of like I need to do these things and know in my brain that no one's judging me. They're all thinking more about themselves than what I'm doing. And it was just kind of like, it was kind of like a yes, like seize the moment and try new things, because who knows when you're going to have a chance to do this again, and just kind of, get out of that, like that box. And yeah, I don't know if I'm explaining it really well, but that's kind of where it came from. Was it all really comes back to like, don't sweat the small stuff and don't worry about what other people are thinking, and just kind of like I've always, one thing that I've always wanted is to just continue growing and continue expanding my knowledge and just continuing growing outwards. And that's what I think makes me seek new things and discomfort, I guess.
Yeah, I think you explained it perfectly, and it has so much power to also know where it comes from. That's a big thing that I've learned later in life, and it took me till I was like 40 to figure it out. But building your awareness of why things happen in your life, why you act the way you do, where you you go through the journey of life, understanding why you do that can be so powerful, because maybe it needs to be course corrected, maybe it doesn't, maybe it's just an awareness tool. It's great that you're able to identify that, because then what means is it doesn't mean you're just, I'm just a person that likes to get out of my comfort zone. You can actually say, when it comes up, maybe something that's even a bigger step or something even scarier, you can instantly say, this is why. And I think that's so powerful, because it keeps you on that same path. And, to summarize that, really, I mean, go live your life, because it could be over tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So true. Yeah. It's something that, so I had to ask that because it fascinates me, and I have to try and get as many different answers to that question as possible to try and shape my own life. But it leads me to think of something else. And the other reason, I guess I had two reasons for asking the question. The other reason was, now I'm actually going to now be really embarrassed and feel really bad to admit that I don't actually know the first time we met. I can't actually remember. That's really terrible. Maybe you'll know, and I feel like a terrible human now. But
no, I love that you're bringing this up, because before we were going to do this podcast, I was thinking about that, and I was like, I'm going to ask him, because I don't actually know the first time we met. I also don't know like how we became close. Also, like I was like, was there like a moment? Like, but yeah, you keep going. Sorry to cut you off. I just love that like we're in sync on this.
I like that we both thought the same thing before we started recording. So I don't actually know, but what I do know is there's certain people that you're attracted to, right? Like there's a certain energy, and I love hearing that story about being out of the comfort zone, because this is always something that fascinated and drew me to you, was that you were comfortable in an environment where, it might have been out of your comfort zone, or you were always open to like getting feedback, or, having an environment where you could share feedback. And not that like I'm coming to give you feedback, but we're in an environment where you're building growth, right? But that comes with sometimes having to be vulnerable. And that always interests me. And on top of that, the style of the conversation, that is important to me as a human being on the planet. And I'm quite antisocial, selectively social, I think is the right word. So
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Right?
I like that. Selectively social.
Yeah. I like to have certain types of conversation. I'm not very good at small talk. And if somebody needs small talk, I just typically I can't. I'm just done. I'm out. So I'd rather trap the person for like 2 hours and make them like get like fully like existential, rather than being like, what's the weather like? Yeah, I'm not good at that. And people think it's rude. I don't really care, not anymore anyway. But my point was that is intriguing to me in a human. And so what I was thinking of is in an environment. So to paint a bit of a picture. And this is going to might sound a bit egotistical, but whatever. I'm going to say it anyway, is in the world of group fitness, particularly, and I've been teaching for 20 plus years, I always found a resistance to having me present with other group fitness instructors. And I don't mean that socially. I mean that in a professional sense. And maybe understandably so. And again, I'm painting a backstory. So I've done a lot of presenting. I've worked for a lot of big companies. I've done a lot of work where I've been forced to grow and become very good at what I do. And I find it interesting that people were then resistant to me. I'm the kind of person that's like, I want to share all this. This is what I do. I'd love to. I want to see what you do. I want to help you. If you want me to give you feedback, if you want to teach together, if you want to, all those sorts of things. 95% of the time it's met with an allergic reaction. And I think it's to do with comfort zones. What we kind of spoke about, which makes complete sense. And this is where I'm going with this long-winded thing I'm trying to explain. But with you, you were never like that. And I believe some of it's probably based on your standing as a professional in the industry and understanding that. But it makes sense that because you're more comfortable being out of your comfort zone, it doesn't bother you necessarily someone else's position in the industry. And anyway, I don't really know if I have a question. I just wanted to share it because that's what draws me to people like you. That's it.
Yes,
it was a ramble.
I feel the same, and I feel like I'm self-aware enough to know that about myself, and it's something that I have noted. I was thinking about this recently. Again, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, but my husband Brett is a martial arts instructor, and he is a high level, and he's really good at what he does. And he actually asked me recently. He says that sometimes when he has instructors that he's trained, so people that are under him, and sometimes he'll be watching them teach, and he'll say like, "Why didn't you do this? What happened here?" And they'll say, "I just get nervous when you're around. I usually do it right, but I get nervous when you're there." And I think that's the same kind of phenomenon that you're talking about. And I think, yeah, some people just, when they are aware that someone is around that is higher educated than them, or maybe has more experience, it's an insecurity that they're going to mess up, or that person's judging them, or that they're going to do something wrong. But I love what you said about how you're feeling the complete opposite. Like you just want to help, and you just want to like help them improve and give them feedback. And it's funny because it's like a total opposite feeling. And I don't even know if that would change people's feelings if they knew that. Like I would hope that it would, but I don't know if people are just so in their own heads and so insecure and thinking about what they might do wrong. I don't know if it would change it. But yeah, for me, I think you're right. It was that kind of like, I need to get out of my comfort zone thing. And I remember there were times when I had a Les Mills master trainer. For those people that don't know, Les Mills is the company that is responsible for Body Pump and Body Combat and all these other things that we've talked about a little bit. I had a Les Mills master trainer in several of my classes, and I remember telling someone that, and they said I wouldn't have taught it. I would have died. Like I would have refused to do it. And I was like, yeah, I looked at it as like this is an opportunity for me to learn and to get feedback from somebody who really knows what they're doing. And if I screw up, it's okay, because I probably would have screwed up anyways. And then at least this way I can get feedback on it. And that's how I looked at it. I think, that's how I looked at it teaching whenever I team taught with you as well. It was like, this is an opportunity for me to learn. And I think it's super cool that we kind of look at each other in the same way now. Like, oh, I can learn from you, you can learn from me, and we just it's a good relationship. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, likewise. And that's so nice to hear. And I think the other thing that comes with that is that, remember that even if you're in a situation with someone who is, like you said, more experienced, more knowledgeable, whatever, you have to go through a process to get there. And it doesn't make you perfect. It makes you, it's in heightening your skills to go through that process. But listen, for anyone that's ever been in that environment with me, I'm a vulnerable human being as well. And I need to get better at everything I do as well. So we're there for that purpose, right? And sometimes it's just fun. Sometimes I'm not there. I don't care, really. I don't care. Like, I make mistakes. I, don't do a great job of programming sometimes, like all of those things, right? I present and, say the wrong thing, mess things up, whatever. Like we're all human and we all do that. But it makes complete sense. And I'll share a funny story as well. And then I've got another question for you. So you said about having a master trainer come to your class. So we'll talk about Les Mills again. So again, we've painted the picture of this is a big international company. They're based in New Zealand, and I actually had the honor of working for them for a while when I lived there. And so there's a program called Body Combat, and the person that creates the choreography, there's two of them, but one of them is a guy called Dan. And we're shouting out everybody today. I'm sure he's definitely listening to my podcast.
Shout out Dan.
So,
but when they know that you've shouted them out, that means you can tell them we shouted you out, and then they're going to listen. So
we'll do that. I'll tag them in it when I post it.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's the person that makes the choreography, presents this, and in the Les Mills world, it is kind of royalty, right? He's been around a long time. He actually, funny enough, took me for module training in the UK 20 years ago. For Body Combat. So I kind of knew him from them. Anyway, so I was teaching in the main studio where they build all this choreography and where all these people that, direct these programs and create them. And he walked up the stairs in the back of the studio and watched me while I was teaching. And I've never been more terrified in my life. But it was ridiculous because you're like, oh my God, I'm terrified. Dan just walked in the back of my class, and I had many other people because they all teach at the club that I was fortunate enough to teach at as well. So it's quite funny because they would, once it happens once, you're like, oh, it's just another person that, the person that they're always there. They're there and they're about, especially if it's like a week where they're filming choreography, everybody's there. Yeah. So you just kind of get used to it for the first time. But then you have this moment, and how I managed to process this, like in the moment while I'm teaching a class, but you're like, really, what does it matter? Like, I'm not here to be as good as him. I'm just here to do this class, to do my job. And, his job is also very different, creating choreography as opposed to teaching a class. But it's so funny, right? That so me personally, the kind of person I was instantly terrified. And then I'm going to mess everything up. I'm like, well, so what? Like, it's just, and you learn so much. And I'm very fortunate that I learned a lot from that experience, not just that literal experience, but the experience of working there. But yeah, you have to be so comfortable with it, and you do get comfortable. And maybe that's why I struggle to process why there's a kind of standoffish, energy in those environments, because you just get so used to it, based on what environments you put yourself in. So anyway, I just want to share a funny story because I always share that and people are always like, oh my God, what did you do? And I'm like, I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you. It probably messed up the entire thing. But anyway, it's quite funny. That
reminds me of another story, a quick one. I just want to tell it because now I remember. First of all, the master trainer that came to my class since we're doing shout outs was Yusuf. Shout out Yusuf. He's awesome. He's so great. Love him. I owe him a phone call. But this quick story that I wanted to tell is I now remember, I don't remember when I first met you and Nikki, but I do remember when my first experience with you. And I don't think I've ever even told you this story. So before I became an instructor, I was a member at Good Life, and I was working in this job in the entertainment industry, which was downtown. And I used to work out. I used to go to the fitness classes at Young in St. Clair gym. And I'd go to this one specific instructor's body pump class after work, like one day a week. I don't remember what day it was. And one day she wasn't there, and there were two instructors team teaching her class in her place. Like, I didn't know that she had a sub, but it was two instructors team teaching her class. And it was great. The class was awesome. And I remember I went home and I told my mom, and this was, again, before I taught anything, I didn't know how to teach body pump. I had been like a performer. I did musical theater, so I knew a little bit about being on stage and whatnot, but I didn't know about teaching body pump. And I remember I went home and I told my mom, I was like, these two instructors team taught, and they subbed for this girl whose class I used to go to. I don't remember her name now. And I was like, and they were so good. I was like, everything was perfect. Like, I think they came from Les Mills. And I was like, they had accents, so like maybe they did come from New Zealand, but like they were perfect. Everything was on par, and like it was just such a good class. And it was you guys, it was you and Nikki. And I think it was probably like, you probably hadn't been in Canada for that long. I don't even know if you had like regular classes, and maybe that's why you were subbing and doing it together. But yeah, it was you guys, because I remember the accents. I remember. So yeah, that was my first like encounter with the two of you, and I thought you were great ever since.
Well, thank you, and that's hilarious. I love that story. Yeah, it would have been. So what is it? It's 2022. That would have been like 2012, something like that, like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It would have been about right.
Probably.
Yeah.
That would be about right. 2012, maybe 2013. So
yeah. That was literally when we moved back, because we've lived in Canada now twice. So that was when we moved back, and we literally just came from New Zealand. So we would have been so messed up because we'd lived in the UK most of our lives, like 25 years, been in Canada for a year, went back to England for a year, went to New Zealand for a year. And that would have been directly after moving back from New Zealand. We pretty much came straight to Canada after that. So yeah, I would have had this whole messed up, it's messed up now, but messed up accent. And that probably would have been, that class was probably, as an instructor, a Les Mills instructor, my prime, because I literally probably just got off the plane like 2 months earlier from teaching at Les Mills. So that's pretty funny. So hopefully.
Yeah, and that's why I was like, I think they must have come from Les Mills. Like I could sense that you would come like off the plane from Les Mills.
Well, that's a really good message for anyone listening that wants growth and wants those things. We spoke about getting out of your comfort zone, but the other thing I think it's important to share is that you're a reflection of who you surround yourself with. So you almost can't go to work for Les Mills in that environment and not become better. Like, it's almost impossible, because you get the boot pretty quick, right? There's another person waiting for your job around the corner. So you can't help but do it. And you don't even necessarily actively try to improve. It washes off on you, right? And you pick it up. So, and yes, it takes work too, but yeah, that's important. And some funny stories. So now I'm glad I know kind of technically when we met, even though I was standing on the stage. After that, I don't know. So yeah, maybe we'll have to like dig into the archives. We'll do some like regression therapy to figure it out. So that's incredible. And I love sharing these stories, and it makes it so much fun. But I also want to take all of that we spoke about. We heard about CrossFit. We've heard about Les Mills, all of those kind of different areas of fitness. What I'd love to hear now is how you bring all that together. And there's no right answer to this. Again, like I said earlier, it's kind of, whatever you see it as, but what's your philosophy with coaching? Like, whether that's group, whether that's one-to-one, like what kind of element, we know the elements you bring to it, but how does that translate in what you do every day?
Yeah, I was thinking about that when you mentioned philosophy recently, and I know, like, it's one of those things that, like, I know in my head what I do, but I had never really thought about articulating it. It was really quick though to figure out how to articulate it, which is cool. And yeah, I think like one of the things that we're talking about, like my philosophy, I guess, like what kind of sets me apart. The first thing that I thought of was, and we've touched on it a little bit, which is great, is the education, and not in the sense of I want to educate all my clients and participants by telling them every single fact that I've ever learned. It's more about everyone that I work with. I want them to know why we're doing what we're doing. I want them to know the why. So, for example, I had a client come last week, and she brought her significant other to our training session that we did. And I didn't know anything about him. I just asked her, what does he do? Why are you bringing him? She said, oh, like he plays soccer, but that's like his only form of exercise. He loves playing soccer. That's all he does. I said, great. So just working with that, I programmed for us to do front squats as our strength. And as soon as they came in, I was like, okay, today we're going to do front squats. And I just did a really quick the why. I said, I know you play soccer. One of the things that you are going to be able to use when you play soccer is you want explosive power. So that's going to help you with your running, with your jumping, with your kicking. The way that we can improve explosive power is you're going to work on your triple extension. You're going to work on using your glutes, and that will progress us. And you'll see that skill transferable. And when I said that to him, it like something clicked, and he was like, oh yeah, great, I'll do this. It's going to make me better at soccer. Cool. So even in a group environment, if I can just quickly let people know the why, like we're doing this exercise because it is going to improve your functional fitness in terms of you're going to be able to change directions quickly. Like, oh, you drop something and then you have to get to that, and you're going to be able to change directions quickly. So even just really, really quick, I always want people to know the why of why we're doing things, because I think it helps with like intrinsic motivation. It helps them motivate themselves to do what we're doing. And I think it makes you do what you're doing better when you know why you're doing it. So that's a big thing for me. The other thing that really permeates my coaching is connection. So if we're talking about a class that I'm teaching online for the Nock Academy, for example, every person who's in the class is going to, at least at one point in the class, be called by name by me and given something that they can improve or something that they're doing well. So always, and that would be in my personal training sessions as well. You'll be spoken to by name and you'll say like, oh, that squat looks really good, or push your knees out a little bit more and you'll get better depth on your squat or something like that. So everyone will get spoken to by name and given something that's personal to them. And if I do correct you, I'll watch you throughout the class and note if you're doing it better. Like, oh, good job pushing your knees out, Gareth. I see you. So that's something that's really valuable to me. And then the third thing that I think is like a tenet, I guess, of my coaching philosophy is, I would say, efficiency. And that goes through my whole life. I think that we're similar in that way as well. I am somewhat obsessed with like optimizing systems. But that goes through with coaching as well, and not so much in like a logical, like everything has to be perfectly efficient way, but in a work smarter, not harder kind of way. I've learned over the years that I don't want to just run everyone into the ground. Like, we're probably not going to go super hard for an hour in our sessions. There is going to be rest, and there's going to be rest, like, again, for a reason. You'll know the why. Like, we want to rest a little bit here so we can work harder here, so we can focus on our technique here. But yeah, just working. I think that's a good way to say it, is working smarter, not harder. Not trying to kill anyone, but trying to help you get the most out of what we're doing.
Yeah, I love that. And I just, before I pulled a few questions out, but I just wanted to say, we don't want to kill anyone, unless of course we were teaching the class together, and then we probably were trying to kill you. If you ever experienced that, you're very welcome. It gets a bit competitive. Anyway, so that was just my thought about how hard some of those workouts were in the past.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that sense of fueling people with the why. And I always believed in this as part of kind of, coaching in general. And here's the brutal reality of it, everyone listening, especially if you're in your fitness journey, you're starting your fitness journey, or you're maybe in that lull where you're like, it's just really hard to do these things. Well, when you understand why it's benefiting you, it really helps when it's hard. I know why I strength train. And when I don't want to do it, I understand. I'm obviously very fortunate to have all that knowledge and information from my whole career, but I understand why it's important, and I'm going to do it. Or when I'm doing something really high and I'm doing like, sprint intervals on the bike and I want to puke, sometimes I don't want to do it, but I understand that it's good for my cardiovascular fitness. It's good for me because I've got to be on my feet moving all day with work and everything else, right? So I want that to be there. When you understand that stuff and you have a coach that can educate you as to why we're doing it and transfer it, like you said, right? Like it's playing soccer, or like I talk to my members, like you got a sore back from picking your kids up out of the crib all the time or throwing your toddlers around. I'm like, well, welcome to what's going to help you not be in pain when you do those things, right? Help you be more functional as a parent, or help you, with your sport or your activity or whatever it might be. And, I use parents as an example. That's our predominant kind of audience. So it's really helpful. And it will, even though the power of that isn't as obvious when you hear two people talking about it, trust me when I tell you, and go back and re-listen to this, is it will make all the difference when it's tough to get motivated to do something that is difficult, because sometimes it's fun, but sometimes it's really hard.
And I'm lucky, and I'll use this with my clients as well, but I'm lucky to have had a real world example. And I'll go back to the case of my mom again. The reason she recovered from her leukemia and she's in remission, and the reason that she actually just went and had an appointment with the doctor, the bone, whatever the bone doctor is called, who checks your bone density. And she doesn't have osteoporosis. She has osteopenia, I think, but it has not progressed into osteoporosis. And the reason is because of so many years of strength training. Her bones got stronger, so that even all of the chemotherapy and everything that was pumped into her bones stayed strong enough that she can still function. So I think having like real world examples like that is like, because this person did resistance training, they were able to survive this potentially deadly disease and still like be relatively strong in the years following, in the many years following. I think that is that's a huge motivator, is like seeing actual evidence of why we do this.
Like I always say to everyone, I don't care if you miss a few reps or something isn't as intense today, but if you can keep doing it for many, many years, and I always joke that one day I might not be around to help you, and I'd like you to still be able to train and exercise. So I want you to be empowered. I want you to have knowledge, and I want you to be able to do stuff that's going to help you keep doing it forever. And I think as well that here's where we go back to we spoke about kind of fitness professionals in general a little bit, but one of the things I see as a struggle to longevity for fitness professionals is it's really hard to get that knowledge until you've been through it. Like not literally, like you don't have to go through, osteoporosis or go through, life-threatening stuff, but until you start to go through some struggles with your body and you start to understand that, and this is not saying that every coach that's, into their like 30s, 40s, whatever, and has got a bit more life experience with that stuff, doesn't necessarily mean they're a better coach. But in my experience, it can't help but make you a better coach, because you feel it. I know what it's like to get out of bed in the morning and for my body to ache, and not like when I was 20 where I could work out, I could do 10 training sessions a week and be fine. Yeah. Now I do like 3 or 4. And some days I'm like, oh, I don't want to get up if the thing hurts. So it's very impactful. And that empowerment and that knowledge is something that is really important to me. But, and from my experience and from reviewing my own coaching, is it's a sweet spot too, because I'm the oversharer of everything, right? Like you said about you don't want to give everyone every bit of information. I do. I definitely want to do that. And I'm always like on and on and on. And I'm like, you're going to hear it. And I was like, do you not get bored of saying that same thing? Nope. I'm going to say it every single time you see me. I'm going to tell you the same thing about that, because you need to know it. It's important. It's empowering. And I love that. The connection thing. This is huge. And the reason why this is so important to this conversation and to everyone listening is it's hard to see this in a virtual environment, but it is what, in my opinion, and, I'm probably going to praise my own business here, understandably so, it's what sets us apart a little bit, right? That we strive to get good connection. And that doesn't always mean that it's back and forward, like people are doing their workout, they're on mute on a screen, but we're able to connect to them. That builds that trust and that relationship. So when the session's done, they need to ask a question, or they need to come off mute, or they need to come to a Q&A session that we run so they can ask those questions, or maybe they want one-to-one training, is they start to build this relationship. And the relationship is tough virtually. It is a very different skill set, but we're just always trying to find ways as a business to do that better and find great people like yourself that can do that I know that can do that, because that's what's sometimes the missing link is, right? There's literally go click online workout on YouTube, you get like 10 million hits, but you're not going to get that, right? And that's what's so impactful. And I just think it comes from doing it very well in person. You're very good at that, in a live environment. So, it doesn't surprise me that that's important to you and that you're doing it in a virtual environment too.
Yeah. And I love what you, to sing your praises, I love what you and Nikki are doing with your business. And I really do, it really does feel like you're creating a community and people are involved. And I felt like it was important to continue that and like you said, I create that in a live environment as well. But I think people crave it, whether it's a live environment or a virtual environment. And people don't always do it well in the live environment either. And it's something that, like, Brett, my husband, and I talk about all the time, because it's a really important thing in CrossFit and what we do. And we bounced around to several gyms where we didn't get that community feel, and we didn't feel like we were getting attention from the coaches, or that it was like a community environment, that people were there to socialize a little bit and help each other out and support each other. And I think you've done a great job creating it virtually, which is extra challenging.
It is. Yeah, I feel like if anything is going to be the death of me, it will be trying to create community and across like every platform, like all social media platforms, on the sessions, like trying to get everyone involved. People are like, will you just leave us alone and stop trying to get us involved in everything? No, I will not until it kills me.
Yeah.
So that's my that's my challenge, is trying to do it. But yeah, it's been a cool learning curve, and to your point, sometimes we can, I am definitely not as comfortable being uncomfortable as you are. I'm getting there, and these conversations help for sure. But sometimes you get out of your comfort zone without really even realizing it, which has been a lot of the business, to be honest. We've been trying to, so many things came up for me in running the business I didn't even think about, and I just kind of went in and did it and then figured it out. So sometimes we just have to be curious, and that helps us to get out of our comfort zone and do those things. So yeah, good, powerful message. So I want to hand the mic to you now, and just for you to share anything else you'd like to share to the members, to the listeners of the show, or just anything in general, words of wisdom, not to put you on the spot, but yeah, anything to share before we wrap up the show.
I want to know that while we've talked a lot about me being comfortable, being uncomfortable, but I want to note that I am not always. Like I mentioned when I first went to CrossFit, and it was a completely different thing. When I had done body pump, I didn't know what I was doing with Olympic lifts. I will tell you that probably every time I drove to a CrossFit class for the first 3 months, 6 months that I did CrossFit, I was nervous. Every time I have to psych myself up to do it, but I just made myself do it. So, and then I'll also share that tonight I'm going to a martial arts class with my husband. I said he teaches martial arts, so now I decided like a few months ago that I'm going to learn martial arts completely out of my comfort zone. No idea what I'm doing. He has me working with the advanced class, so these people have been doing martial arts for years. And yeah, I'm nervous when I go to that class. But again, I just have to I think the more you do it, I'm not going to say it becomes easier, but you become more comfortable with being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. So yeah, I just wanted everyone to know that I am not like perfectly comfortable with being uncomfortable all the time. It is a process, but it's one that I enjoy. In terms of like we covered a lot of what I wanted to share, I think, which was like, yeah, my coaching philosophy and the importance that we put on educating and the why and connection. And I'm really glad we got to touch on that, because that's something that, like I said, my husband Brett and I have had a lot of conversations about lately, is when we eventually open a gym, how do we create community? How do we create connection? How do we keep people coming back and enjoying what they do, and making it when they come to class, making it the best hour of their day and making them want to be there. So I think that that's something that I really value, and I hope comes across. And yeah, I really just want people to find a way to enjoy fitness and wellness as much as I do. When I get up in the morning and I get to go to the gym or come down and do a workout in my gym or coach a class, it's the best hour of my day. I feel when I wake up and feel like everything hurts, I'm like, I know it's going to get better if I just move a little bit, if I have people to do it with. And I just hope that I can find a way to make other people feel that same way and to feel positively about fitness.
Yeah, great place to end the show. And I think if we continue these conversations and these, you know, projects and other things that we decide to do, like opening businesses and gyms and stuff, as wild as these ideas are sometimes for me to comprehend. I think when we keep doing those and we surround ourselves with the right people, we create more of those environments for people to embrace their movement and their health. And, you know, everyone has a different entry point and a different place where they feel that. So yeah, be curious, get out there, people. Be curious is the message. Listen, this has been incredible. It's always an incredible chat with you, and I always appreciate it. And I know that everyone listening would have got a lot from this. So listen, whatever you did get from the show, share it with someone you love and you care about. This podcast grows when we get more and more exposure, and that helps. So if you're listening and you're enjoying it, please spread the love and get it out there to more people. Joy, thank you for joining me. I appreciate this conversation. I just appreciate you. Period. So that's all I have to say to end the show. Thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.